Okay, for week 5, we talked about graphic novels and poetry. This was my first time really exploring the graphic novels, and I really enjoyed them this week. I was able to see like the benefits of graphic novels, and I realized one of the articles stated, in traditional text, illustrations can serve to support, explain, or contradict the text. In graphic novels, images are the text. And that's so true. You've got to read through and look at the graphics, and you read them in a way to try to figure out what's going on in the story. And for both of the graphic novels this week, I feel the graphics were everything, and I don't feel the story would have been the same and had the same message and came across the same way if it wasn't for the graphics. So I feel like the two that I read this week were really good graphic novels, and I really enjoyed them. For my first, it's the one that we all had to read, Persepolis. Um, it tells her childhood and growing up in Iran and the things that she went through and what the country was going through at the time. So you can see her struggle and almost the hatred in her and how she got so worked up and she wanted to make a difference, even though she was still growing up. She wanted to make a difference and she wanted to make a stand. And so I like that you get to see it through her perspective and as she's growing up and in school and dealing with things, even like with her family. I just like that it's told from her perspective, and I feel like adolescents would really appreciate that as well. They would connect with it more since it's told by her. And I feel the pictures and the comics and the graphics really aided this story and kind of gave it the value. Because I feel like it wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for these graphics. A few quotes I have. This was when it was like their maid, and they're talking about how she's from a different social class. But it is her fault that she was born where she was born. Dad, are you for or against social classes? When I went back to her room, she was crying. We were not in the same social class, but at least we were in the same bed. So, yes, they were from different social classes, but that didn't matter to her. She still loved and cared about her, even though they were from a different social class. And the other quote I have, it's when she was about to leave and she was talking to her grandmother. And this is what her grandmother tells her. In life, you'll meet a lot of jerks. If they hurt you, tell yourself that it's because they're stupid. That will help keep you from reacting to their cruelty, because there is nothing worse than bitterness and vengeance. Always keep your dignity and be true to yourself. So she gave her some kind of words of wisdom before they sent her off. And but I thought this was a really good book to use in history class, to talk about the stuff that's going on in the other countries. And I like that it's told in her perspective about things. And in this, and talking about her life and her growing up, in one of the articles it talked about, as educators, we need to help students see that inside these provocative books are stories that can help us better understand ourselves, who we are, and who we want to become. So there's great lessons inside each of these stories, and in particular this one, as we watch her be brave and courageous and stand up for what she believed in, and we can kind of look at ourselves and think the same things. Another book I had this week was another graphic novel, Drowned City, by Don Brown, and he illustrated it as well. This talks about the hurricane, Hurricane Katrina. I guess I didn't realize quite the devastation that Hurricane Katrina had on New Orleans in that area. The graphics in this are awesome, and I feel like they really make the story. You can't really. They really add to the story, and I really enjoyed that. And this is a true story, and I didn't realize some of the things that were taking place during Hurricane Katrina. Like, the place was completely in devastation, and just some of the things that were happening. Like, I'll share one. Shops and businesses are looted, sometimes by people in need of food or supplies, and other times by thieves who are quick to take advantage of the streets without police protection. The mayhem encourages more than a few police officers to join the looting. They rob stores of computers and TVs and steal luxury Cadillacs SUVs. That kind of like blew me away. What? Why are the cops stealing too? I can understand a break-in for food and water and that sort of thing, but to be stealing TVs and computers in a time like this, like, that blew my mind, and I realized, and especially police officers, they shouldn't, And this, the next one I'm going to read, I'm an animal lover, so just hearing some of these things was really sad to me. Dogs staggered down the streets, hungry and thirsty, and lap the disgusting water. Disaster workers are ordered to ignore pets, and thousands of animals are separated from owners, sometimes at gunpoint. So, that's sad to me. I'm an animal lover. I can't imagine leaving my animal in something like that. But at gunpoint, they were forced to leave their animals. But through reading this book, you got to hear that after this hurricane, they did change the laws around so that people could take their animals. No longer that law. Because there was a ban on pet rescue, and so they put a ban on that so animals could be rescued in the future, which I was glad to hear. But this was just a really good book to talk about the history of Hurricane Katrina and just some of the things that happened. I feel this book would be really great to use in science when you're talking about the natural disasters. I feel like in science, they don't really get to look at books like this. I feel like it's mostly the textbooks. So I feel like a graphic novel like this, students would really like to use in a science course. I thought that would be perfect for science. My last book, this is Give a Boy a Gun by Todd Strasser. This book is about Brendan and Gary, and they're planning to shoot up their school in Middletown. This is after Columbine. And these two boys are kind of taunted in school and picked on by like the football players, and so they decide that they're going to shoot up the school. And this book, I like about it, it's told through like their emails back and forth and their IMs back and forth. And also in here, you get to hear from the students who knew Brendan and Gary, and the teachers that knew these boys, and you get to hear their feelings as well. So this is really interesting book. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that I would say is I enjoyed the whole story, but at the bottom of each page are like statistics, and I feel like that distracts. I need to keep reading, because at first I was reading and then I was going down to statistics. I felt that was too distracting, so then I read the story and then went back and read all the statistics. And all the statistics in here are about shootings and gun violence, and so that was interesting to read as well. But this story, it was really interesting to hear the conversations back and forth between the boys when they were deciding to do this. This one, sometimes Gary and I could escape into that world where no one bothered us or laughed or made fun. But it never lasted long, and then it was like waking up from a dream and facing the cold, bald truth that it wasn't real and never would be. For the popular kids, the dream was real. They lived it. They had to be afraid of waking up. They never had to be afraid of waking up. So just talking about how for the popular, everything was good for them, Who cares that they picked on these other kids because their life was good? Well, for these kids, it wasn't. And that taunting and that name-calling, it was a breaking point for them, unfortunately. And this next quote, this was really eye-opening as an educator. Our job is more than just teaching the main subjects and teaching academics. Our job is so much more than that. And I'm elementary, but as middle and high school teachers, it's even more because there's so much going on in these kids' lives. But with this one, with a trend toward two parents working and spending less time at home, the responsibility for raising children and instilling them with values rests more and more on the on the shoulders of schools. We are no longer supposed to teach just academics. We are now supposed to rear, nurture, coddle, protect, encourage, discipline, and teach good hygiene and eating habits. If you're a teacher with 6 classes of roughly 30 kids each, how exactly are you supposed to do that? So that was the principal of the school that was being shot up by these boys. And so he just said, it's so much more than that. And after this all happened, now it's eye-opening to them and realizing that they need to do something about it. But that was this week and some of the books I read.